In this report, I discuss why cheaper countries are more fun, and you'll be delighted to know it's not just about the money. After traveling the world for 14 plus years and living in 67 different countries, I've noticed what I enjoy most about the cheaper countries. And now I will share these observations with you. But I consider learning about foreign culture to be one of the most enjoyable things about retiring cheap overseas. Personally, I find it more interesting to be a student of a new culture I'm exploring rather than a teacher of my old culture. In that regard, cheaper countries are more fun. Let me explain. Why cheaper countries are more fun? First, I would say it has to do with adaptation. If you're from a modern, expensive country like me, you'll find that you have to adapt yourself more to cheaper countries. You see, once a country gets more westernized and globalized, they generally get way more expensive, but they also require less cultural learning and adaptation by me once they're expensive. But I find it more fun to learn about a new culture and adapt to it than try to import my old culture into a new country. During your working years, if you only get a few weeks off per year, you may decide to go somewhere that's suitably adapted to all of your daily needs so you can focus on relaxing and recharging your batteries instead of learning about a new culture. Tourist areas in cheaper countries are great for this. They are cheaper and more exciting because you're getting a taste of a different culture of the world, but not much cultural learning is required in these touristy areas. During your working years, your purpose of travel might just be to recharge your batteries and head back to work, so you may not be as interested in learning. But once you retire and you don't have such a tight time schedule, you'll have more time on your hands. You'll have more time to immerse yourself in a new culture. You see, many of us will want to retire overseas specifically to explore a new culture or cultures that are unfamiliar to us. When we have more time in retirement, we want to learn about fascinating faraway places. But the more the new culture is different from your home country, the more you'll have to adapt, the more you'll be learning every day. If you move to a tourist area when you retire in a foreign country, you won't have to learn much about the new country. The tourist areas are often more globalized and westernized, and they are often way more expensive than the non-touristy areas of the same country. Touristy areas will have most of the foods you eat at home, and they often have someone that will speak English to you in the restaurants, grocery stores, and on tours. Many grocery stores and tourist areas will even have food brands from your home country that cost more than they do in your home country. In that sense, many new foreign retirees in foreign countries choose a first retirement station overseas in a more touristy area. These initial touristy stations also have more people from their home country that can help them find everything they need and provide instant relationships. This will help new foreign retirees or expats avoid some of the cultural shock of living in a new country. But once you have your foreign legs under you, you may decide to wander further off the beaten path of the touristy areas and immerse yourself more fully in the new culture. Okay, here are some examples of why cheaper countries are more fun. I would say cultural immersion. When you get away from the touristy areas in cheaper countries, you'll begin to clearly see the culture that you're living in. You will see the foods they eat, what they pay for them, where they live, where they go to school, what a real wedding looks like, what a funeral looks like, what songs do they sing, what are their dating rituals, what foods are in the stores and restaurants, and everything else that culture does when it's not trying to create a habitat suitable for foreign tourists visiting. I found this aspect of cultural immersion the most fascinating. When you go a whole day walking around a city or neighborhood and only see one or two other foreigners, you'll know that you are doing true cultural exploration. Even in touristy towns, if you wander off the beaten path and find where the locals live, eat, and congregate, you'll start to get the feel for what a country is really about. When I first started to immerse myself in cultures outside the tourist areas, I was a little afraid. I think it's just human instinct to feel threatened by what feels initially weird or different from our past life experiences. So you need to go at your own pace on this and trust your instincts. But if your experience turns out to be like mine, you'll find that the world is a safe place. But do read my report, How I Have Remained Safe Traveling the World for 14 plus years. My tips and tricks will help reduce the chances you'll be a victim both overseas and in your home country when you explore in an area unfamiliar to you. You see, I consider myself a student of a new culture when I enter a new country. I don't feel it's my place to judge what culture is best in the world or how the cultures compare. I prefer to just learn about them. I learned living in India for 3 years that motivated people are often able to solve problems with a stick and a string that costs $1 instead of paying $300 for a new replacement part. So learning about a new culture, how a culture lives and breathes, how it solves problems, what they eat and what they value is more fun in a cheaper country. Why, you may ask? Because they can't do what we do, how we solve problems in the expensive world. They can't just throw money at their problems. They have to be creative and solve problems in ways that cause them to think more. That is part of what makes them so interesting from a cultural perspective. You will see what makes the country work in action as they go about their day and life. It's more fun to solve problems with less money. I know that's contrary to what we learned growing up. I have a few friends in the US that like to buy very expensive name brand things like shoes and electronics, furnishings, and cars. They seem to love it when you ask about their possessions. They explain how expensive the designer is and what they paid for the item. I'm just the opposite. I like to brag about how little I spent on something that is also high quality, although may not be brand name. I share where to get the best quality for really cheap. Oh, these shoes? I found them on sale for $20. Spending as little money to get the same quality excites me. That's why I love finding a great mom and pop restaurant in a local area of a cheap country rather than an expensive restaurant in a touristy area. The truth is, the expensive restaurants in the touristy areas of cheap countries are rarely able to provide a high quality meal comparable to what you will get in your home country. You see, expensive restaurants in tourist areas of cheap countries don't have access to all the high quality ingredients, spices, water, humidity, and talented chefs they would need to make the kind of meal you would expect in your home country if you paid that much money. So when you pay top dollar in touristy areas of cheap countries, you're not going to get what you expect. Something is going to be wrong. The food and the service in the expensive restaurants rarely will justify the price they're charging. Now compare that to a local mom and pop restaurant outside the tourist area. They have access to all the ingredients they need, not as imported food, but as fresh, local, cheap ingredients selling at local prices. You are in the country where those dishes were invented using those local ingredients that are readily available. Plus, they're not trying to learn how to make a foreign food. You're eating family recipes made by a family chef that made their family's restaurant famous to the locals in that area. They know what they're doing and they are using fresh local ingredients and spices. Plus, their local customers know how that dish is supposed to taste. The most discriminating kind of customer. Now, I know what you're thinking. Dan, I don't know where to go or what to order. That is all weird local food and I've never tried before. I don't even speak the local language. Okay, here's what you do. Pull out your smartphone and search on Google Translate. Type in the words, "I would like an order of the meal you sell the most." Then show the translation to them in the local language. Just keep smiling and pointing at the translation. They'll eventually serve you that food. You can also just look around at the other food people are eating in the restaurant and point at the one that is your favorite. So how do you find the great restaurants? You walk around the local neighborhoods and you look where you look for the crowded places. That trick works all over the world. And there's a good chance you'll love the meal they serve you. And there's a lower chance you'll be disappointed because you don't have any past knowledge of what that meal is supposed to taste like. Plus, you will typically pay less than half of what a meal would cost in the touristy restaurants. Doesn't this sound fun to you? You're learning all about a new culture and you're spending less money doing it than if you tried to recreate old food and culture by hanging out in the touristy areas looking for stuff you know how to order. Instead of living in your past and looking to recreate a comfort that will never be as good as your memory about your home country, you're living in an adventure and learning about new culture. Cultural adventure is just more fun. The other thing you'll notice, there's fewer tourist scams once you get out the touristy areas. If you live, eat, and associate outside those expensive touristy areas, you're likely to find that you will not be the intended target of tourist scams as often. The scammers know to go to where the most gullible people are, which is in the tourist areas. So if you live, eat, and associate more locally, you're less likely to be approached by tourist scams. Also, you can retire sooner. If you're living on less money, if you're eating what the locals eat and living in local accommodations, you'll not need as large a nest egg before you retire. So you can retire earlier. That means you'll be younger when you retire, which means you'll have more energy and time to really enjoy yourself. So it is more fun because you can do what you want at an earlier age. Okay, learning keeps your brain fresh. If you leave your home country and undertake cultural exploration, those learning challenges are likely to keep your brain more engaged. That constant learning is also likely to reduce your chances of getting bored from doing the same old things you did during your working years in your home country. All of this learning is more fun in a cheaper country because how they do things is more different than you would have done them in your home country or another expensive country where they just throw money at everything. So life is like a MacGyver adventure. You might remember MacGyver was a show where he fixed things with a string and a stick and a wrench. It was a great show. You are more unique and special. When you go to a new culture and meet new people, you're a stranger in a strange land. That will open up doors for you that may not have occurred if you stayed in your home country. People will be interested in you just because you're a foreigner. Can you imagine a 61-year-old guy like me walking around with a runway model in my home country? I don't think so. That is only because I was a well-traveled foreigner. Do you think that an average guy like me would have been able to sustain such a crazy, fun life in an expensive country like I am in these cheaper countries? I don't think so. The family and friends you grew up with might be on Facebook, but they're unlikely to be anywhere near you once you move overseas. So you'll have to get out of your comfort zone and get a new life. The new people you meet will only know you from the present day. So you have to decide what is important to you and find people that fit into that new paradigm. Well, thanks for watching reading my report, Why Cheaper Countries Are More Fun. This is Dan of Vagabond Awake, the YouTube channel for Vagabond Buddha. Thanks for stopping by. The world is your home. What time will you be home for dinner? Hey, if you liked our video, please like, comment, or subscribe. Any of that would help our business. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Click the link in the notes below this video to get a copy of this content. Plus, grab a free copy of my ebook, How I Fired My Boss and Traveled the World for 13 Years. While you're there, check out our catalog of retired cheap reports all over the world and our hobby income course that we just released. Thanks so much.